your host, Willie Lambright. Glad you're with me this Saturday night live in the studio. Real estate concierge, one of the greatest real estate agents I've ever had the privilege of working with. And we're talking about relocating and how you get through some stress. And as my friend always does, she analyzes and factually comes up with everything that could be an obstacle for somebody. And you broke this thing down to 4 major stress points.
4 major stress points.
Oh, how in the world did you do that? Did you get out there and try to see what it's like to relocate, or did you come up with these things?
We actually came up with solutions to what we found the stress points.
You always do.
Yeah, we like solutions, right? No need to just keep talking about the problem. We got to find answers and solutions. There's always out there. Okay. The first one is so one of the holes we saw in a traditional kind of real estate model was, we know people are relocating across the country. Every statistic, every article, every major news source tells us that. However, it was still segmented. It was still okay, come to Dallas, you get here, you figure it out, and then figure out who I am, and then me as the agent, and then we meet, and then I show you houses, and then you buy the house. Well, but then the question is, well, how do you get here, and what do you do when you're trying to get here, and where are the movers, and do you need packers, and all those parts that traditionally go along with
stress,
and they go along with the traditional relocation platform. But what we're seeing as a trend is the old way that people kind of relocated across the country was they had an HR department, and that HR department hired a relocation company, and then that relocation company kind of was their liaison, and they did everything. We're still seeing that happen to a degree, but when you have kind of the smaller regional type movers, it doesn't really work like that. Or companies, it doesn't usually always work like that. We're seeing more people do it on their own, and then they're getting kind of like a credit.
Yeah, they get an allotted budget.
And then they handle it on their own. So we're seeing kind of this shift a little bit. Now with big companies like Toyota, of course, they have an entire, probably 2 or 3 departments dedicated to this. And but with these, again, we're seeing so many companies come in that we're seeing a trend shift. So we really wanted to find a way to help those niche market people that really have to do it on their own. And so we came up with, we partnered with this company called Updater, and it provides a free kind of relocation platform. It helps you change your mail, even the mail with all those weird magazines and things that you don't even know where to call to change your mail. It helps you hire movers. It helps you hire packers. And it helps you kind of learn a little bit about your new city as well.
So when somebody uses you, then you actually help, because you've done this research, alleviate the stress points. So you're, as my old friend once told me in the contracting business, Willie, you got to be an asset, not a liability.
Absolutely.
So real estate concierge becomes an asset to that family moving to Dallas. And that helps them navigate and not be so stressful.
That's right. That's the idea. So they can. So I'm a big believer in you do your job, let me do my job. And so your job is do your work, right? Because you're still probably having to work, and then we'll kind of pick up the other part of anything real estate that falls into our bucket.
Do you find that the man of the home makes certain decisions, and the other spouses make their other decisions? How does that work? He's the dominant person in the family is writing the check, and then they delegate that, right? And then you work with them, right?
Yeah. Traditionally, we see a lot of roles in all kinds of relationships, and it is fun to kind of figure out who does what. But I've seen it 1,000 times that you definitely have people that do those kind of things, and then we get to know who we get to work with and how decisions get made.
Do you help with the pets? How does a pet ride? Well, they go. If you're coming from California, it's about a 2-day drive.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. We just relocated one family in this past. They just moved in Sunday, but what they did was they took a 5-day trip across America. Yeah. Yeah, and they just stopped it. And they have 2 kids. Kids, no dogs, but they stopped just along the way and just kind of took that family time, and it was really, really cool. They really, really enjoyed it.
So you got 4 points. By the way, if you're just joining us, Real Estate Concierge is in the studio this Saturday night. What a great company. Get to know them. 855-732-6700. Again, 855-732-6700. Ask for Heather Anderson. Probably going to get one of the best real estate agents you can imagine here in Dallas, America. Let's go to number 2.
Okay, number 2 is so a lot of times, Willie, when you're a seller, almost always it's a very traditional kind of, I guess, meeting that you have before you list the property. It's called a seller orientation or a selling listing presentation, something like that. You know, it has a few different names, but that's the idea. But for buyers, nobody really does that. Nobody really has this orientation or this meeting before buyers start looking at houses. I call it the new way to real estate. Because it's like, hey, that's the old way is we meet at the house and we look at the house and we leave with the house. The house is a part of it. It's one piece. It's not the whole. It used to be the whole, but I think things are different now. The internet kind of changed that. We've already seen 3,000 houses before we actually see one because we've seen them all online at 2 a.m. on our bed, on our iPads. But the new way to real estate in my mind is we have to talk about our finances. We have to talk about potential expansionary and recessionary markets that are going to rise. Even with our relos, this is even more important. How long are you going to be here, right? Do we really want to buy a house if we're on a 1-year assignment? Honestly, the answer is probably no, unless we can parlay that into potential rental property opportunity. And if you're willing to go down that path, which again, psychology has to match with that too, because if we have, husband saying yes, wife saying no, it's probably not going to happen, right? Sometimes we just can't get comfortable with that. So having these kind of conversations, I saw so much devastation, Willie, in the last recession. And so many people relocated from California and bought investment properties who live in California and bought investment property in Texas. And I saw devastation. I saw financial wipe out. I mean, people had to reset their lives and their families, their expectations and everything. And it was really sad to see, credit was ruined, money was lost. People were set back probably by a decade. People are now just being made whole if they even ever recovered to begin with. So
that's the truth.
So we just believe.
If you don't listen to the media, there speaks the truth, is what Heather just said.
We got to talk about what happens next time this happens, because it will. I'm sorry to be like a doomsday person, but I'm a finance person. I'm an economist type person. And I always look at these cycles, and basically we will have another recession. We will have another expansion. So we got to be prepared. So we believe in teaching our clients how to be prepared for that battle. And so we have that conversation on the front end, and then when it happens, we're kind of already prepared. We have our bug out bags ready to go, right? So
are you a prepper?
No, I'm not, but but anyway, we have our bug out bags ready to go, and this orientation helps set the benchmark for that. And then if we forget what it is, and 2 years later, we have it all on paper, and we remind them what that is. But anyway, this orientation helps do that. It's called the buyer orientation. We call it a RECBO is our internal term, Real Estate Concierge Buyer Orientation. And it's about a 1.5 hour to 2 hour meeting. And I tell you what, it really, really, really helps set the foundation for the goals. So that's another thing we do for our relos, and any buyer really, but specifically when we have our relos, there's a very specific questions we have to ask, and a lot of them deal with time frame and hold time. Yeah. And so we do that orientation. We can do it over the phone. We do Google Hangouts a lot, so we can see their face and they can see ours.
Google what?
Google Hangout. It's like Skype.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's like Skype, but it's actually free, which is cool. And,
can you connect that to my beeper? I'm playing with you. Hey, listen, I'm fixing to have to go to break live in the studio. Real Estate Concierge. We're talking about relocating, some of the challenges that you will face and where to turn. I have the solution for you. And when it comes to real estate and relocating to the great state of Dallas, Texas, I want you to reach out to Real Estate Concierge and ask for Heather Anderson, 855-732-6700. Again, 855-732-6700. Really talking about 4 discovery points of the stress factors that people go through when relocating. And I can understand this, Heather. If you don't know and God forbid that you got in touch with someone who had a real estate agent that had their own agenda at heart as opposed to the client. I can't imagine a real estate agent doing that. It's a joke, all right? Then it slows the process. When we come back, we'll tell you the other 2 or 3 and 4 points. Any questions you may have, we can certainly answer that at WRLrealestate.com. All you have to do is log on there, and I'll get you in touch with Heather Anderson. You reach out to her at 855-732-6700. I'll be back in a Willie Skosh.